overview of the industry. So approximately about 72,000 people working in the pharmaceutical industry within the UK, and 27,000 of those are within research and development. And that's where us as clinical statisticians sit. It's a highly regulated industry, and we have to work very closely with regulatory bodies. In the US, this is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. In the EU, it's the EMA, the European Medicines Agency. And here in the UK, we work with the MHRA, which is the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. So, what were we aiming to do here in the pharmaceutical industry? We aim to discover new medicines to treat patients with disease, or to develop prevention for developing disease. We're also looking at ways to improve medicines. So there's a lot of medicines already out there on the market, but as science is improving and changing, we're looking at better ways that we can treat these patients, which will give them a better therapeutic response, but have less side effects. Also, we're looking at developing new devices for administrating the medication to patients. So, for example, for patients who have rheumatoid arthritis, instead of having to go to the hospital and sit with an IV drip in them for a number of hours, they can now be administering their medication by themselves at home through subcutaneous injection. So, as well as developing new medicines, new devices, we're also looking at methods of diagnosis so that we can detect the patients with the disease quicker and treat them faster. So, how do we do this? So the phases of clinical development are as follows. It's split into 4 phases. Phase 1 is first in human. So that's when we first put the drug into human volunteers. And these are healthy, usually male volunteers. And here we're just testing the safety of the drug to see whether there's any unwanted adverse events. If this is successful, the drug then moves into phase 2. And phase 2 is when we first put the drug into patients who have the disease. And we aim here to identify what's the best dose to be treating these patients with the disease. This is really important because we don't want to be giving patients too high a dose, because then they're getting unnecessary side effects. But if we're giving them too low a dose, then they're not receiving the full treatment effect. So getting this right is crucial. So if we then have a drug, we know the dose, we're confident with its safety, we then move into phase 3, which is where we have the confirmatory trials to confirm the results we've seen in phase 1 and 2. And this is done in a larger patient group and is used for filing. So our data we collect during our phase 3 confirmatory trials is then submitted to the regulators, and then it's up to them to decide whether this drug should be approved for the market. Then post-approval is the phase 4. And this could be when we've got approval for the drug, but we may want to look at different patient populations or look at it against a competitor. So, phase 1 to 4 is the clinical development, when we're putting drugs into humans. Before that, there's a lot of discovery science going on beforehand. And there could be up to 7 million compounds screened. Of those, only 6 get as far as phase 1. And then from those 6, only 1 can make it all the way through to approval. And this whole process could take between 12 to 24 years, with it taking about 10 to 12 years to get a drug through phase 1 to phase 4. So the different types of companies we have in the industry. There's a range of facilities, so the research and development part, but also the manufacturing of the drugs, and then once the drug is approved, the marketing of it. And all these require laboratories, offices, factories. So here today we have a number of pharmaceutical companies and contract research organisations. And these can range from very small companies to very large companies to national to international. And the pharmaceutical companies, they outsource some of their work to the CROs, and this could include the statistical aspects of the trial. In a pharmaceutical company, you're more likely to work on one drug project and see it through. However, at a CRO, you're more likely to get more exposure to a variety of different therapeutic areas. So both have their benefits. Also, as I mentioned before, there's also the regulators, which play a huge part in our industry. And here in the UK, we have the MHRA. So they're assessing the quality and the efficacy of the medicines which we are producing, and determining whether these should be supplied to patients in the UK. They're also monitoring the adverse event reactions which are occurring with our medicines, and also with the adverse events with the devices which are being developed. And they also have the right to take any necessary action for public health by either putting in safety warnings or removing drugs from the market completely. So in addition to all this work that's going on within pharmaceutical companies and CROs, we also have universities and hospitals who are also doing their own research and development. And they may be leading clinical trials, or they may also be able to offer statistical consultancy in areas of statistics, randomization, and analysis methods. So that's an overview of the industry and the types of companies. And now I'm going to hand over to Helen, Tristan, and Steve from Parexel, and they're going to talk to you about what role a statistician and a programmer has within the industry.